Giorgio Armani is widely considered one of the most famous fashion designers in the world, with one of the largest fashion design brands to his name. Multi-billionaire and pioneer behind the idea of red carpet fashion, Armani is truly one of the fashion world's greatest influences. He was born in 1934 in Piacenza, Italy, and originally wanted to follow a career in medicine, namely after reading The Citadel by A.J. Cronin. However, after attending the University of Melan's Department of Medicine for 3 years, he would ultimately leave to join the army, where he would decide to follow a different path. In 1955, after 2 years in the military, Armani would get a job as a sales clerk for La Renaissante, a department store in downtown Milan, where he would become a seller for the menswear department, and would find an increasing interest in the world of fashion and design. From there came a long-lasting and successful career as one of the world's leading designers. As the 80s rolled in, Armani saw an increasing role in American society as an outfitter for film and TV, with his custom works showing up in many big-name movies, visually telling all kinds of stories of luxury and pride. And so, from the greed and excess on Wall Street to the dark underworld of organized crime, let's take a look at some of Giorgio Armani's best movie designs. Brian De Palma's film, The Untouchables, premiered at cinemas back in 1987 and told the story of a group known as the Untouchables, a small group of agents under the US Department of Prohibition back in the 1930s who were specifically tasked with ending crime boss Al Capone's reign over Prohibition-era Chicago. The film earned positive reviews and was a critical success at the box office. People enjoyed the invigorating storyline, suspenseful action sequences, and overall nature of the movie. As this was the 1980s, American gangster films were still a major thing in cinemas. For Armani, however, this project served as somewhat of a challenge. If you've watched my video on 1980s power suits, you'll know that one of the major names in the world of 1980s men's fashion was Armani, and that's where his brand found most of its success during that era. This did, in fact, carry over into the film's fashion, which I'll get into in a second, but either way, the movie was still visually motivating. The movie's Armani-made suits do have a few historical errors when they compare to 1930s American suits, and a lot of the time they just end up looking like pieces from the 1980s. This is mainly due to the cutting, proportions, and sizing. In the 1930s, suits accentuated elements like thin waists and arms, and featured things like high buttoning points, whereas in the film, a lot of the time they're really just wearing a suit from the 1980s. However, I don't believe pure accuracy was Armani's main goal. Rather, I think it was to outfit a stylish era for modern audiences, which he did fantastically. In 2013, American filmmaker Martin Scorsese would direct one of his most notorious movies, The Wolf of Wall Street. The film told the insane story of one of 90s New York's most successful con artists, a man by the name of Jordan Belfort, his rise from a standard broker at LF Rothschild to the drug-addicted multimillionaire who ran Stratton Oakmont. The movie is a crude and vulgar journey through a life of crime, showing both its supposed highs and terrible lows. However, due to the nature of Belfort as a Wall Street millionaire across the 1980s and 90s, the film's wardrobe is certainly something that requires praise. Armani, being one of the power suit champions of the era, very likely found his name in Belfort's closet many times, and as such, this film was perfect for him. Across the movie, we see wildly unstructured suits, excessive shoulders, pinstripes, large lapels, and a wide variety of differently fitted pieces. We see navy blue to pinstripe black to charcoal gray and everything in between. As an artistic film, it's visually stunning, and this is propelled further by its accuracy to the era. Because of how artistically diverse the period was, as a designer, you have a very large canvas spread out before you, and so it's safe to say that The Wolf of Wall Street is some of Armani's best work. Gattaca is a very visually dynamic film. The movie came out in 1997, being directed by Andrew Niccol and starring Ethan Hawke and Uma Thurman. The movie has a rather dark story, telling one of eugenics and the digital era, and rightfully received high praise and many nominations. It's a rather interesting project that you probably didn't expect Armani to have been a part of, but then again, it is a very stylish film. The film's style is sleek and solid, harkening back to the space fashion of the latter mid-century. Ethan Captain Hawk wears, as an example, a long black pinstripe suit with 6 front buttons and very wide sharp peak lapels. It's a double-breasted jacket that noticeably accentuates his shoulders. He pairs it with a black tie and alternating dress shirt. For one, it makes for a very clean look, giving greater immersion to the clean, futuristic aesthetic of the film. However, it's also a timeless piece, which is what makes it so great. The outfits across the film could be worn in the modern day and still stand out as eye-catching and attention-grabbing, and that's what makes them so good. They're great examples of 90s pieces, retro-futuristic fashion, and can still be worn today all the same. Goodfellas is a great example of American gangster cinema. Directed by Martin Scorsese, it tells the real-life story of American mobster Henry Hill, who operated in New York from the 60s until the 80s alongside the Lucchese crime family. It's a great movie with realistic acting, and it tells a very shocking and exciting story. The movie's fashion is one of its central elements, with its most memorable suits being worn by Ray Liotta and Joe Pesci. Their suits are well-fitted, characterized by long, dagger-like collars and a wide variety of materials and colors. They of course change per each scene and fit their respective characters perfectly. The historical accuracy of these pieces is to some degree questionable, although I don't think by much, as they certainly fit in with the rest of the film. Of Giorgio Armani's filmatic works, the suits featured in Goodfellas certainly are near the top of the list.